controversial topic in health and in the diet industry that causes a lot of issues for a lot of people and sometimes fear and confusion is whether or not sugar sweetened beverages or sweeteners in general are safe to consume, and then together with that, how much is safe and so forth. So I think also when it comes to the word artificial, a lot of people get kind of scared of that word and kind of move away from it and form ideas about it that might not be the right ideas, or it might be unnecessary fears that you then have in your health and diet journey, for example. So today I want to talk about your sugar sweetened beverages, like for example Coke Zero or Coke Light or Sprite Zero and the likes. Specifically going to focus on aspartame, the sweetener that is, I would say, the most common, and then just talk a little bit about whether or not it's safe, and hopefully give you some guidance to make an educated decision whether or not you would like to include these beverages or sweeteners in your diet. So before we start, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Melissa Nell. I'm a registered dietitian and I'm part of the Body 20 Nutrition Doctor team, and welcome here if you're new here. Please follow along. We do these videos every second week. If you have any questions, you're welcome to send us a WhatsApp or an email, and you're also very welcome to send us any topics that you'd like us to discuss in these videos if there's something you want to talk about or if you have a question about. Okay, so let's jump in. Firstly, aspartame is an artificially manufactured sweetener in a factory, and it is actually 200 times sweeter than sugar. So you can actually think that they actually don't need to add a lot of aspartame to the product to actually make it sweet, because it is 200 times sweeter than sugar. So that's firstly a great thing. The main concern when it comes to aspartame is the fact that the thought that it could increase your risk for cancer. So any food or lifestyle or thing in general that can increase your risk for developing cancer, we call a carcinogen, or it is carcinogenic. And when it comes to the carcinogenic or the carcinogens, we can actually rate them in different groups, not we, but it is being rated scientifically in either group 1, group 2A, 2B, and 3. So starting with group 3, that is your not really recognizable or things that we don't need to think about. So the research has shown that these products aren't really carcinogenic, we don't need to worry about them. So that's things that in general we don't really think has a correlation with cancer. Then we move to group 2B and 2A. So group 2A and B, we see that there are studies that have been done in these foods or these lifestyle things, and that there is a possibility that these products or food items can be carcinogenic. However, majority of these studies have been done on rats, and they can't really say that the results are significant. In other words, they can't really make a proper conclusive statement to say yes, it will increase your risk, or no, it won't, for example. And then our highest group, of course, is group 1, and that has been shown by multiple research studies to have quite a significant carcinogenic effect. In other words, the risk for you developing cancer if you have this type of lifestyle or eat this type of food is definitely there and significant. So when we look at, for example, aspartame, the sweetener, that falls in group 2B. So in other words, that is, yes, there might be a possibility of it being a carcinogenic agent. However, most of the studies have been done on rats and it isn't significant. The results aren't significant. Other things that also fall in group 2B are aloe vera and pickled vegetables. So I actually haven't ever heard anyone say that you shouldn't eat gherkins because it's going to cause cancer. So it's quite interesting how your sweeteners like aspartame has gotten such a bad reputation when they fall in the same group as pickles, for example. In group A, which is a higher, a more risky group, we see red meat actually in that group. However, just a side note, when we look at the studies when it comes to red meat and cancer risk, we see that it's not a causative effect. In other words, we can't say red meat definitely causes cancer, we see it's a correlation. In other words, we see people that have that consume a big amount of red meat in their diet do have, typically tend to have more cancer. But they can also rather see that it is more the processed meats that is actually more carcinogenic than really the red meat itself. People consuming lots of burgers and, processed meats like pies and your bacon and the works. Those things have been shown to be a lot more carcinogenic than really just red meat. So unfortunately, red meat has kind of become an umbrella term. So we do see that people that consume a healthy diet with red meat in it, but also with lean meats and fish and chicken and so forth, it is definitely still safe to incorporate it into your diet, but within moderation. Then group 1, which is a very risky group, and this is where we see that definitely there is a connection between these things and cancer. We see obesity or being overweight or having excess fat in your body is definitely a very high risk for developing cancer and other metabolic diseases like heart disease, atherosclerosis, cholesterol and the works. So we see that obesity is actually group 1. It's way higher than aspartame. Okay, so I want you to remember that. So when it comes to the recommended amount that is safe to consume in terms of aspartame, we see that 15 milligrams per kilogram of body weight is a safe amount per day. Now, if you look at a can of Coke Zero, it has about 87 milligrams of aspartame. So if you consume 1 can of Coke Zero, you'll consume 87 milligrams of aspartame. So if you weigh less than 2 kilograms, then that would be your maximum amount that you're allowed per day, and none of us weigh less than 2 kilograms. So we can see that you need to consume quite a significant amount of aspartame or Coke Zero to then reach that 50 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day. So it's quite a big amount that you can consume. So in terms of the carcinogenic effect, so that's really, it's safe. If you consume 1 to 2 cans a day, you should be safe in terms of the carcinogenic effect of aspartame. However, the other school of thought when it comes to aspartame and the risks thereof is we see that we're worried about the breakdown of aspartame and what those the things that aspartame is broken down into the body, what their effect would be on the body. So if we look at how the body metabolizes aspartame, we see that it breaks it down into about 10% methanol, which sounds very crazy and dangerous, about 40% aspartic acid, which is also a non-essential amino acid. So it's like almost forms part of the building blocks of the proteins in our bodies and the proteins that we consume. And lastly, 50% of phenylalanine, which is like a interesting word. So we see that's the breakdown of aspartame. So these words sound quite intense and dangerous, but it's quite interesting if we look at other foods and how they're broken down and how much of these components or amounts are basically then in other foods that we consume. So if we look at, for example, a can of Coke Zero, it would then break down as about 20 milligrams of methanol, whereas an apple would break down to about 50 to 90 milligrams of methanol. Okay, and an apple is healthy. Then if we look at aspartic acid, we see it's about 85 or 80 milligrams of aspartic acid, from that can of Coke Zero. And then we see that an egg, for example, is 800 milligrams of aspartic acid. So that's quite a big amount. And then lastly, we see your phenylalanine is about 100 milligrams of phenylalanine from a can of Coke Zero, and an egg has 250 milligrams of phenylalanine when it's broken down in the body. So in general, we can't really say that the products that it's being broken down into is going to be dangerous for us just because it's artificial, because we see that even from natural healthy foods like eggs and apples, we get more of these different methanol or aspartic acid or phenylalanine at the end of the day. So to conclude, taking a sugar sweetened beverage will definitely be more beneficial to you if your goal is to lose weight, then consuming a sugar-containing beverage. Because remember, like I mentioned earlier, obesity or having excess body fat is like number 1 in group 1, whereas aspartame is group 2B, which is like the second lowest group, right? So if you need to consume Coke Zero because you really enjoy, the sweeter taste of a beverage and you don't want to drink water, and you feel like a Coke Zero is going to satisfy your thirst better, then, as long as you then, replace your sugar-containing beverages with that, then it will be beneficial, because then you're going to lower your calories, which will then hopefully help with decreasing your body fat in your body. We also see with a lot of systematic reviews that there's no increase in appetite, hunger, or cancer risk when we consume aspartame. There's actually no acute difference in the blood sugar levels or insulin, and that has been seen with a systematic review, which is a really good quality research studies. And then aspartame doesn't have an effect on the gut microbiome, as we've seen with the breakdown of the methanol, the phenylalanine and aspartic acid being less than it would be with the breakdown of certain other foods like apples and eggs, for example. However, we do see stevia and, for example, sucralose may have an effect on the gut microbiome. So in general, a artificially sweetened beverage like a Coke Light or Coke Zero or Sprite Zero or the likes is safe to consume, but like everything in life, we prefer moderation as far as possible, because there might be, issues with your teeth if you consume 50 cans of Coke Zero a day, so don't do that. And water, of course, is still a great source for the body in terms of hydration, so definitely don't replace all your glasses of water with Coke Zero or Coke Light. That is definitely not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that in general, you can feel safe to consume 1 or 2 cans of an artificially sweetened beverage if that is your liking. And if it's definitely going to help you to reduce your amount of calories, to then of course reduce obesity, which is then of course one of the leading causes of a lot of health issues and also cancer. So I hope this has been helpful. It is a mouthful. If you do have any questions, let us know. You can send us, like I said, a WhatsApp or an email, and then I'll see you in the next one.